Hello everybody, this is Maniac4Bricks, and I'm going to do something a little different today. We're going to have a Collect-A-Thon and a review at the same time. Most of my thoughts between the two videos talking about the Visorak would pretty much be overlapping, so I thought it would be a lot easier if we just did it as a single video. I'm going to review the 6 Visorak, and then we're going to do the Collect-A-Thon element, so stay tuned for the end because there's a couple extra things I wouldn't say for the review. So these are the 6 Visorak figures. You can find all the information about them in the description below, because it'll take me for a while to go through set numbers, piece counts, and price for each of them. The prices for each of these was actually moderate. It was around, if I remember correctly, $7 to $8 in the United States. Again, the description will have the accurate information about them. But these figures are pretty much clones of each other. They have the same basic build, they have the same play features, and they almost look the same except for the colors. But there are actually a couple interesting features about each one of them that we will go over for this video. The Visorak, in the context of the Bionicle world, these were released in 2006 when there was the Metru Nui storyline going on, and basically these were creatures that were under the command of Cataract, and he used these hordes to conquer various islands and has now invaded Metru Nui, and he uses them. They're able to spin webs. They also have Vertuka spinners, so that the little tops on each of them actually have a little like a little spinner, a little disc that can shoot off of them and use them as a power, and they are pretty dangerous and numerous. They are not just 6 of these as you see them here. Like, there could be thousands of just one single color. It's that big of a horde, and it's a pretty interesting villain, I would say. It's kind of like the earlier Boggarak that were from 2002. So, let's get right into the review. We'll talk about each one at a time, and basically just highlight the importance of each one, because there are a few features that each one has. Before we get on to reviewing each of the Visorak, I just wanted to show you what the canisters were like at this time. Now, it's interesting that these were in a bit of a dome shape on top of the canister, but I actually do appreciate that because it gives a nice place for the projectile, and you actually could fit a couple more inside of there. Now, I don't have all of these canisters. I only have the Vohtarak one to show you that I've previously obtained, and I'd like to get the other ones just for my own collection, but for right now, this is all you really need to see. It shows you some of the play features on the back. It even shows you a Kanoka code, which at the time could be used on the Bionicle website and give you some online points to use for rewards and things. And I don't think that was actually covered up or anything, so I guess technically for retail you could have just flipped around all of them, wrote them down, and then use them on the site. I don't know. Then basically you just twist this off, and there's also some clips underneath here that allow you to take the disc out, and has room in there for fitting 5 of them. So, and the rest of the figure would obviously be in the rest of the case. So first we're going to take a look at 8742. This is Vohtarak. And I don't think with any of these in the story they're supposed to have any elemental powers for the Visorak. They're just kind of there for, like, kind of species, you know, like different designs, different colors, and so on. So they don't really represent, like, this one doesn't represent fire, or the blue one doesn't represent water, or anything like that. They're just there for show. So, I'm just going to demonstrate with this one some of the play features that are just the same with all of them, because they are relatively the same build. First of all, we have 2 points of articulation in each of the limbs on the front, and then we have 3 of them in the back, because they have more hinged joints. And with all of these, you can press down on this back area, and have these pincers move forward. It doesn't always completely close, and it really does depend on each of the figures, but they're pretty cool looking, and it's a nice little play feature to have, you know, moving around by hand, trying to make them more intimidating. And it just has a good look to them, in my opinion. Now we also have another play feature, the projectile type of play feature, that is also shared with the Toa from this same year. Basically what you do is you hold this ripcord in the back and just let it rip. Now on the case it does say it's supposed to go a big distance, but I don't really get that result all that time. And it really does depend on the force that you put behind it, literally behind it. in order to make it fly off in the air. For this one, it doesn't really do much, and it's also kind of hard to set up that play feature while still having the legs articulated. You know, if you try to have the legs up, but you're also trying to hold it, it's bound to move the legs down, and you're really not going to have a sturdy structure, you know, in order to hold this. And sometimes it also gets stuck right in there, in that spot, just because it's so secure. I mean, it's almost like too secure, but there you have it. Doesn't really go far. Up next, we're going to take a look at, on the left, we have 8746 Keelerak. And then on the right, we have 8743 Boggarak. And excuse me about the pronunciation of these. They're kind of long words and not really sure how the pronunciation actually worked in universe. But we're taking a look at two of these because they're virtually the same exact build, different colors, and the only real differences other than the, you know, piece-wise is the head area, which are different designs on both of these, and also the pincers themselves. But otherwise, they have the same length of and same articulation on both of the limbs. On the back, you can see it's a little bit more interesting with the recolors for the limbs back here, because we have dark blue and then we have dark green. I don't recall if they were introduced before then, but they're okay. I mean, it's nice to at least have that, but they don't really do much different from each other in terms of, you know, building it. Now, what is interesting are, like I said, the heads and pincers on each of these. You can distinctly see that little spine area on top of the heads. They are different from each other, but also kind of match up a little bit with their weapons, or their pincers, I should say, themselves. This one has a more jagged look, and even the pincers have some jagged edges, while this one has more stripes on it, and even the pincers have a bit of striping. So they are pretty interesting looking, and like I said, that's really the only difference on them. So now, at least now we got to look at them at two in the time. Let's take a look at the next three. So the next three we have are, in the middle is 8744 Oohnorak. On the side we have 8745 Roparak. And then on the other side we have 8747 Suukorak. Now, all of these I'm trying to do a little bit of difference in posing, just to give you a little bit more of the limb articulation between them. And it kind of works, but in some cases it does have limitations. And we'll talk about those right now. First thing I wanted to address is why I'm showing three of them at the same time. Well, the one in the middle actually combines elements between the ones on the sides. You see, the one on the right side has different limbs that are used from most of the other Visorak. The front ones are using the Boggarak limbs from years before, and I guess based on the color you could kind of say Boggarak Call, but it also has a newer recolor right there. And it also has wider, I guess you would call them shoulders, because if I were to open this up, you would actually see this piece in the middle is actually wider than ones we've seen previously, and even wider than the one on the left side, as you can see there. Now, what I also wanted to bring up is that on the left one, the one that fuses elements here, is the limbs that are on the back. They're a little bit shorter than some of the other limbs, and that's really much it, as far as I can say. So this one has a little bit of both of those elements. It has the longer piece in the middle, the more interesting, you know, curved pieces on the sides for the limbs, and it also has the shorter limbs on the back. But what's also interesting about this one is that it has shorter pieces here as well. None of the other Visorak have that, and I think that could have helped a little bit more with bringing new combinations to the table. I mean, every other Visorak has the longer pieces that are put in there, but this one is shorter, and makes it really more appealing and stand out a little bit more. What I also like about this one is it may be the first one that introduces Keet Orange before the figure that the Keet is named after, Keetongu, because this did come out shortly before that set, or roughly in the same wave as that set. That's just the figure it's more associated with, because that's the entire figure's color scheme. But this also is a more interesting figure because it's more sharp on each of the pincers, whereas most of the other ones are a lot more curved in different ways. You can even see between these how this one almost has a whole circle effect, you know, just the way it's curved there. And this on this one, it's a little bit shorter, but it still has the curves on the very end of it. Again, you can also see how the heads are different between each of these figures. This one, again, more jagged and kind of lines up with the design of the claws. This one has that little circle, which we also saw on each of the pincers themselves, and just has a whole bunch of stripes along the ends. And this one has a more smooth look with a couple of little holes in between. So, it's interesting to look at each of these, but in reality, let's face it, they do virtually the same thing. If I was to pick a favorite between these, I really want to say Oohnorak, because his is the most interesting of just how the limbs line up, how the back limbs are shorter, even though I kind of prefer the longer limbs in general. But it at least brings a lot more to the table versus the other figures. I also find it interesting that he has the keyed orange with his color scheme, because at this time, I don't think that was actually part of the traditional black villain or hero color scheme, and kind of just, you know, isolates it. I also don't think the red was incorporated with the brownish one either. Probably not, because we already had a red figure, but that one was a dark red, so it kind of can work. And I also find it interesting that the eyepieces on here are much different from all the other ones. Whereas the other ones have been previously released, and they actually do have... yeah, they've all been used previously, as far as I can recall. This one has trans yellow, and to me, it seems a little bit newer, seems a little bit more unique. So, there's our look at the 6 Visorak. So overall, these are okay to collect, but I really don't think you need to get every single version of them. I was happy back in 2006 just picking up one of these and got the gist of it. But I do appreciate that each of these have not only their own color schemes, their own designs, but also just the pincers by themselves are probably one of the better parts for, you know, making them unique. You could really have some differences in how they look, or just using them in customization just by those pieces alone. I don't really think a lot of the pieces in these sets are really worth reusing outside of the limbs, and maybe the claws, which is kind of a tricky subject. You know, you really have to build something that's going to encompass that. But for the headpiece, back thing, it's not really going to work out because it's so distinct and so few areas that you could actually connect around it. And in some cases, kind of hard to build around it, you know, even with the model itself. As you can see, you know, some of the limbs just kind of bump it up a little bit. So, it's okay as far as these go. They're okay to collect, but I'm actually really happy to have this part for the Collect-A-Thon, to have them all collected and at least get to show all of them at the same time. Why did I collect all of these? Well, I got kind of bored of the red one. No, I'm just kidding. I actually do appreciate their versions of them, and I also wanted to see how the combos worked. So if you want to see the combo models, we can talk about that in a separate video after this one. Let me know in the comments below how interested you are about that, because there are actually 3 combo models you can make out of these 6 figures. You take, you know, 2 of each and put them together and make some interesting other Bionicle universe figures out of them. It kind of limits it, but they do an okay job trying to make them, you know, not look like spiders again. Now, also for the Collect-A-Thon, I know that you can see I have collected all 6 of these. Great. But what did I mention before about there being other ones is, well, kind of here and there, kind of can be considered as another version or two. It's the Kahgarak, or Kahgarak as I like to say, from one of the miniature playset sets from the Lego Bionicle time. You see, they had miniature versions of these figures, as well as the Toa and a couple other things, and I have reviewed one of the sets with them, the Tower of Toa, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But in one of the sets, this is set number 8759, Battle of Metru Nui, they included the Kahgarak, as you see here, as the sort of scale version that would have represented itself in the universe. Now, granted, compared to all these other ones, it looks just like them. It's really not that different. but there are actually a few subtle differences we'll take a look at in just a moment. The Kahgarak is supposed to be a sort of general to the Visorak. They'll command certain groups of them under the commands of Cataract. So this is not your top guy. This is just somebody that's above your pawns, or your sentries. But what's interesting about this figure is that, yes, it has a similar build to all the other Visorak that we took a look at. But this one is actually supposed to be much larger in universe than the other ones. Here's a look at one of the Visorak we saw earlier, and here's a look at it compared to this. Yeah, huge. I mean, like, crawling over a building huge. So if that is supposed to be that, this would be so big. I wonder if anybody would ever build a mock that would demonstrate that sheer size compared to this. So what's also interesting about this one is, yes, it does have a similar Visorak build, but it also does offer a few new things. For example, the limbs on the front are actually different limbs and a little bit longer ones. In my opinion, they're actually a little bit better to use and easier to pose with, because the other ones kind of had this hunched look. And this one you can easily move around a lot more just by the way the ball joint is attached. You also have shorter limbs back here, which I did compliment Oohnorak about earlier. And you also have another play feature in here on top of the pincers on top and the spinning Rotuka on the top. This one has a feature in which it can carry one Visorak at a time, the miniature ones we saw earlier, and you can just pull this back with a little rubber band function and launch them out of there. Now, the problem with it is you have to really get it right the first time, because it does get stuck. And this is not really helping my case. So let me see, if I just put it back all the way here and then pull it back, maybe it'll come out. It doesn't always work, and I did lose one of the rubber bands in trying this out. You see, this doesn't really have a stopper on the back, so if you keep pulling this out, it will just pop out of there. So it can be a problem when it comes to playing with it over and over again, that you might just pull out the rubber bands by accident. Let me see if I could try that one more time, get some real force behind that, and launch. Well, not really. I mean, at least it has a compartment for holding them, and I thought that it would actually work. Again, it could be factored by the rubber band that I have missing, but regardless, that's a play feature it's supposed to have. And you could still kind of simulate that if you just have the back legs put down like so, and you can see it's already starting to crawl out on its own. So there's a look at the Kahgarak, or at least one of three of them. So other than the unwritten 7th version of the Visorak, the Kahgarak, there's also actually other versions of the Kahgarak itself. You see, other than the one that we saw there, and that's actually the one that's depicted in the movie, Web of Shadows, there are actually 2 other versions. One of them is by combining this model and this model, and like I said, if you want to see the combo, you can talk about that in the comments below. And there's also this version that was in the Tower of Toa set. I've already taken the mask off of it. That was from Makuta. It's in a pearl gold color, so it does have the same color scheme as the one we saw earlier. This version, to be exact. But it has a different style, actually a bit of a different build to it, and a different play feature, in which if you tap the bottom of it, you will have this cannon that will shoot out. And yes, I know the mask isn't on there, so it kind of eliminates the realism and whatever. But I took that out because I'm working on the Bionicle mask wall, and that's going to take a lot to put it back on there and such. So you get the idea, and you can also look up the image of it and the review of it that I've already done on the channel to see more information. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this combo review, and let me know if you want to see the combo sort of review. I guess it's also a combo review too, but review of the combo models of these figures in a separate video, and let me know which of these do you like best, including the Kahgarak. Maybe this one, maybe the other one too. We'll see you next time with more LEGO videos, and you can check out plenty of other Bionicle videos on my channel. One's already there, and one's even coming up, because we got a lot of Bionicle stuff to cover, and I'm trying to condense them as best as I can for the playlist. So, we'll see you next time.